especially, in the past, let's say 6-8 months when lending has tightened up quite a bit. That's been tough for not just owner operators, but fleets also. So yeah, it's very difficult for anybody outside of a credit or a large fleet to obtain a low mileage truck at this point.
Welcome to Stream, a trucktractortrailer.com production. My name is Zach Miller. I'm your host, and I'm really excited today to be talking with Chris Visser, who is the senior analyst at JD Power for the commercial vehicles unit. And Chris, the timing of having you on right here is perfect. You and I are recording at the very end of the summer. I can tell you internally at trucktractortrailer.com, we are seeing prices in the used market go down. We're getting close to pre-COVID levels, actually, in terms of what we're seeing anecdotally. So I'm really excited to have you on talking about what you saw in July and sort of where we're going, in the fall here.
Thanks for having me on, Zach. Looking forward to sharing some of the data that we have.
Yeah, so I want to jump right in. Let's talk about just, the July numbers, and then we could segment it out, what we saw in retail and then what we saw in auction.
Sure. Yeah, with retail, we are getting back to pre-pandemic trend, but we're still comfortably above where things ended up in 2019 and even above the peak in 2018. As of July, our figures show the average 3 to 5 year old sleeper was still bringing about 50% more money than it did at the peak in 2018, the pre-pandemic peak. Now, of course, they've been depreciating about 4 or 5% since January this year. It really kicked into depreciation, I'd say, in late May, early June, and that trend is accelerating. So pricing will get back towards the pre-pandemic trend. I'm not sure that it'll actually hit where it was. The freight market is still strong. Both spot and contract is still comfortably above where it was pre-pandemic, and there's still a shortage of new trucks. So there's a lot of factors out there that support higher pricing, even as we're pulling back right now.
Can we talk about that for a second? What are you seeing from the OEM side? Because I'm hearing some mixed things. I'm hearing that, and I don't want to name brand names, but I'm hearing that some of the OEMs actually have their orders together, completed, ready to go out to the fleets. I'm hearing there are other OEMs that are actually continue to be backlogged, and end of 2022, early 2023 for some of these OEMs is actually going to be a problem.
Yeah, I would expect that delivery for the end of this year is still severely backlogged. Going into next year might be a different scenario. I don't have hard data, and the OEM reps that I've talked to haven't shared much, except that they all seem to be pretty severely constrained still. I think the one difference, and the one thing we have to keep in mind, is trucks are going out the door with some features and electronic components deactivated, supposedly to be activated at a later date when chips actually arrive and components actually arrive. So that has mitigated some of the backlog to an extent, but it's still pretty severe. Now, going out 8 to 10 months, that might be a different story. But as for deliveries through the end of the year, I think it's pretty safe to say that those are tight and will remain tight.
It's really that missing component, isn't it? Where we're seeing the prices go down, we're seeing a little bit more inventory hit the market, but until those full orders are filled by the fleets, we're just going to be in that sort of tight pattern here, I guess.
Yeah, and further support for that is the fact that the newest and lowest mileage used trucks available are still bringing extremely strong money, and they haven't depreciated much at all. So that's a good indicator that new trucks are still unavailable.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit here, because looking at your data, the model year 2021s, we're talking both in the auction and in the retail. The auction prices of 2021s is still incredibly high. I mean,
Yeah.
if the average auction price of a 2021 truck is a little over $145,000, I mean, that is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of these, mid and small size fleets.
Yeah, it has been. And especially, in the past, let's say 6, 8 months when lending has tightened up quite a bit. That's been tough for not just owner operators, but fleets also. So yeah, it's very difficult for anybody outside of a credit or a large fleet to obtain a low mileage truck at this point.
That's a fantastic point. That's something I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's something that we're seeing too. And I didn't even make a note of it, but since you brought it up, I'm a little curious where does that, how do I phrase this properly? Due to the tightening of the credit, due to the fact that like your owner operators and your really small fleets can't really afford those 2020s, 2021s, does that then drive up the prices for your 2018s or 2017s or 2016s because that's what's available to them? Or is it just sort of like the market is tight all around and those are going to be the prices regardless?
Well, a couple things going on there, I think. Yeah, some traffic is driven to the next available price level that they can afford or can be lent credit on. I don't know if that's going to prop up, well, it hasn't propped up pricing for the slightly higher mileage trucks.
Okay.
So I think what's happening is some of these owner operators who did jump in to chase the spot rate bubble are cycling into working for fleets or leaving the industry. So with the fleet, they get a truck, and if they leave the industry, then that's some incremental increase in used truck supply.
But now I guess now we get into the default situation, right? And I know that's a little out of the purview, but just like talking here, are the auction houses now seeing an increase in defaults? And if so, is that going to bring some of the pricing down?
I don't have hard data and I haven't gotten confirmation on that, but I do know that some of the inventory that you can see at auctions is from small fleets that may have either gone bankrupt or liquidated some of their inventory.
Yeah, it's wild. And then, as you say, drivers leaving the industry, we're seeing the fleet consolidation. It really is, it feels like a bit like the Wild West out there in trucking. And it really does start with the high costs here of these assets.
Yeah, we have to keep things in perspective though, because we're still comfortably above pricing, the pricing levels that we had even in the previous pre-pandemic peak in 2018. I mean, at auction, we're roughly 60% higher on a average 4 to 6 year old truck than 2018, which if the pandemic bubble, the spot rate bubble hadn't happened, we'd be saying that we're in an extremely strong pricing environment right now. But the fact that we're coming off such a ridiculously high peak and so rapidly, obviously that there's negative sentiment attached to that. But if we just look at time periods current versus the peak in 2018, we're still comfortably above pricing there, and even contract and spot rates are both higher than 2018 also. So in any other world, this would be a pretty strong freight and used truck market.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, backing up what you just said in your data analysis. One of your graphs, it illustrates that, where if you look at it's the retail price history, the forecast percent change year over year graph, right? It's like where you look at where it goes, 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020, 2022, they all look kind of similar. And then in 2018, you see a little spike. And then in 2021, it just it shoots up like it looks like an anomaly on the graph.
Yeah, well, it is an anomaly historically. I mean, yeah, it's a hopefully once in a lifetime scenario.
And that's sort of it. So then should those looking to purchase, used commercial, either via retail or via auction through trucktractortrailer.com, however you purchase, should they then be encouraged that, the 2019, 2020, 2022 looks like it kind of matches, and we're getting away from that ridiculous spike of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, pricing is certainly pulling back. We're, roughly 60% higher than the pre-pandemic peak, but we're down 40% from the beginning of this year also. And that will continue to get closer to the pre-pandemic peak. But like I said earlier, I don't think it'll actually get down to the same level. I think it'll end up leveling out somewhere above the pre-pandemic peak, because there are just other factors that, point to support for used truck pricing. It's just, this ridiculous spot rate bubble that happened, starting in mid 2020, ending early this year. We're pulling off of that. We're just burning out that excess irrational demand, but we're still going to end up higher than the pre-pandemic peak.
What have you been hearing and we'll have you on a little sooner, I mean, a little closer to the end of the year, but I'm just curious, as we sit here right now, what are you hearing in terms of that holiday demand?
Well, yeah, that kind of gets into the more macroeconomic side of the picture. Consumer spending is still strong. We're still adjusting back to, the traditional balance between services and goods. Back to school, early data looks fairly respectable. Of course, the drags are going to be inflation, particularly fuel prices, but that, is currently pulling back, and we're adjusting back to the winter blend of fuel, which should ease that strain somewhat. But barring any unforeseen large-scale issues, which is something that we have to say before we make any prediction these days, there's no reason to think that it's going to be, anything less than above historically average.
That's what we're all hoping for. That's what we all want to be hearing. Chris, any last thoughts about the July and summer numbers in either retail or auction?
Well, everything we publish, our monthly market updates, have data that's about a month old. So keep in mind what's out there. What we've published for June was true in June, or July. August numbers have pulled back, along the same lines as the June to July drop. So I imagine the August figures, once those are finalized, will look similar to the depreciation that we saw from June to July. So the market is continuing to pull back. When does it reach the point where it's going to level out? I think once we get to maybe 20%, 30% above the pre-pandemic peak, then we can start to think that things might start to level out. When might that happen? Probably not too long, just a couple of months from now, if things continue trending the same way.
Oh, I love it. I love hearing it. To that point, last question: where can people read the reports, the data?
Yeah, they're on our website, jdpowervalues.com, and I also post them on my personal LinkedIn page, so anybody can access them at those two places.
Perfect. I highly encourage you to check it out. Especially if you're in the market to purchase, but if you're just in the industry, it's still valuable information. And as we know, everything lags behind those prices. So as you have a comfortable idea of where that market is, you could go ahead and make better decisions for your business. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach. Great talking to you.
Absolutely. And if you like the content you see, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Stream.